about the purpose of the night owl. The purpose of the night owl is to take like-minded individuals and talk about a variety of ideas based on the subject matter, that being whatever book or subject that we're talking about. It could be private banking, it could be crypto, whatever. In this particular night owl, we're going to be talking about the Nine-Figure Mindset by Brandon Dawson. This is a for goal setting or mapping out a plan. I think this book was very beautifully crafted because of the fact not only does it give the authors um, encounters with, going from nothing to $100 million, but he also allows other people come in and give their personal testimonies about how they did it and how it was important. Now, we won't go into all of those things tonight because we're only going to be on here 30, 40 minutes, maybe, you know, if that. But what I wanted to talk about first, my favorite line, well, I had two. First, he talks about growth oriented mindset to overcome challenges, embrace change. You got to have a plan. I don't know any CEO or a successful entrepreneur ever talked about just winging it. There was always a plan, right? And if you haven't read the Atomic Habits, that is a great book on how to formulate a plan. This gives you a plan, right? And the other thing in chapter 3, he talked about he already knew he was on his way out at the current company that he was at. He already knew, and he already had an idea about what he was going to do. Again, most high performers, CEOs, successful entrepreneurs always can see the future. If you can't see yourself doing it, it's really hard. It's really hard to um, execute said plans, whatever your plans are. Um, I'd like to open up the floor a little bit. If someone would give what they thought was a very potent part of the book that raised their eyebrows for them as an individual. Anybody want to start?
Yes.
Go ahead, Richard. Good evening, by the way, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. The overall book, it was, I love the book because it was deja vu for me. And when I say that, I say it sincerely from the standpoint. And when I say really, I mean Eva and myself. This book, it was an affirmation. I love it because it put a stamp quite a few things, a lot of things that we did when we grew our company. Not only from a what we got right, but it also clearly stamped, some of the things that we got wrong. That if I was doing it all over again, I would probably do it a little different. But right out of the blocks, I mean, in the introduction part of this, um, where it said it is my belief that from our greatest failures comes the potential for incredible opportunity through, through stepping back for a moment, allowing ourselves the luxury, no, the necessity of rewriting our brains and learning how to move forward, creating success and great intentionality and all that. I mean, that just hit me because it's not going to go right. Um, all the time. It's going to be a lot of wrong. And you have to have the mindset and the belief, not only in yourself, but with the team that's helping you make that plan a reality. And you not only have to sell that plan to yourself, but you got to sell that plan to your teammates, and you got to sell that plan to your clients. So it's not all about you as well. And you have to have a strong team to do that, and you have to have strong belief in yourself. So right out of the block, that particular statement hit me, and that's where Eva and I thrive together because number one, we ride or die. We got each other's back, and we believe in each other's strengths, and we relied on that because, I'm not strong in every aspect and neither is Eva. And we complemented each other tremendously there. So that allowed us to develop a very, very successful company.
One of the things I heard, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis started a residency in Las Vegas, and I saw them on Sway the other day on a podcast, and they were talking about partnerships. They've been together for, can y'all believe this? They've been together for 53 years. So, as partners, and they said they'd never had an argument. He said, now they've had disagreements, but you don't want to be in, and this is beautiful about how you say you and Eva complement each other, because one of the things that they said was the fact that it's not, it doesn't matter who's right. What matters is what's best. And I think that's a lot when you're starting off a company, or you're in it, right? You're in it, and maybe one partner can see something, and the other can't, and vice versa. So I think that's wonderful. Now, Richard, you being in the construction business, you talked about selling the idea to your customers. I think a lot of times too, as you're building something, it's not quite tangible yet, right? So you have to sell the untangible to the tangible, or make it tangible just in your vision. Talk about how difficult that is as a business owner in your field.
Well, it's a tremendous difficulty, but Eva was the best at that. And I remembered, one situation where she helped us, and you're probably familiar with this company because it's a well-known name in this area, Brown and Root Halliburton.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Our first major contract, and this is when we were an environmental consulting company, was at Houston Independent School District. We went in and helped them get a $100 million 5-year contract to perform life safety code, to address life safety code issues. It's funny how you look at that because Eva is great, and she's not only can sell the business, but from a technical standpoint, she understands the business as well. However, there's a certain amount of salesmanship in
Yeah,
that business.
right.
So one gentleman that I was going to be working with, even sold the idea of what we could do, from an environmental consultant standpoint. And he really liked Eva a lot. And I wasn't involved in that meeting. But at the end of that meeting, he said, that's fine and dandy, but who's running the show in the field? That's who I want to talk to. And that's when I came in. And so you have to tag team. But I always tell people when you're building a company, even I was I'm a 2-person shop when we started the environmental company. And we were pretty much a 2-person shop when we were going to assist Brown and Root on this $100 million contract. But what we were able to do is that in order to get in the door, a lot of times you have to put a written packet down,
Right,
proposal.
right.
And my what I preach is that when the client look at my proposal versus a Brown and Root proposal,
Mhm.
was so freaking clean and professional looking. Here we are, let's say $1 million company. Brown and Root is $1 billion. They can't tell the difference in the quality. And
That's awesome. That's
that's
awesome.
where it starts right there. You
That's
can't
awesome.
ask that, then you don't have a chance. And that's what I preach to a lot of, and even we'll probably have some babies out there. And if nothing else, that's what they learn from us is that in order to get through the door, and I'm not, being stereotypical or downgrading this, but we're coming in as a prime contractor. We're not coming in as a subcontractor.
Right, right.
So when you come in with that type of attitude, you have to, I mean, your package have to look just as good or better as that $1 billion company package. And there's no reason why it shouldn't. And so we spent a lot of time on that. I was blessed to work for Merck Pharmaceuticals for about 10 years. and they spent thousands and thousands of dollars on me on technical writing, that type, and it paid off. So for me, that's a start right there to when you putting in proposals and the paperwork, the stuff gotta look sharp and professional.
You know, that's a great segue to a couple of bullet points that I have. Um, Balancing long term vision with short term execution, defining a unique mission, crafting a precise vision, and pinpointing fundamental values. Also, maintaining meticulous oversight of financial liquidity. I think this book points this out very much, and he even admitted that he had issues in the beginning with that. But it was his long term vision and his execution to get to that point. So, one of the reasons why I like this book because of the fact without talking about directly about forex traders, I think there's a lot of things uh, um, that people have issues with trading. You know, we talked about the other night about it's hard when you're in a business and you're dealing with your real money. And anyone who opens up a donut shop or hamburger stand or anything like that, they look at the hardware and they don't look at it like, their own currency, but it was their own currency. They got the equipment. So I think it's just a matter of keeping your eyes on the prize, so to speak. So, like balancing long term vision with short term execution, Ms. Dawson discusses how to maintain equilibrium between a long term vision and the immediate necessities of short term execution. He emphasizes the importance of having a clear strategy for business growth while remaining flexible to adapt to changing circumstances. I think that's really important, y'all, that we as we grow as traders and using some of the concepts in this book, that we have to be ready for change. Like everybody knows, the market could turn on a dime. Uh, Geopolitical issues that may affect price, especially us as forex traders. So understanding that we have a goal, it's going to take some things to get to that goal, and we can't freak out every time a huge bump comes and we freak out. Aretha Franklin, and I've said this many times, it's not what happens to you, it's how you handle what happens to you. So anyone that's familiar with the book, was there anything that stuck out to anyone else as we went and as you read through the book that resonated with you? Anyone else?
Hey, Doc, I'll chime in for a hot second. First, going back to Mr. Richard, Miss Eva, the maturity that you have to have, under those conditions shows off. And what I mean by that is, the alignment and the preparation happens a lot of times, of course, behind the scenes before we go ahead and we get, into the conversations with clients. So the ability to go ahead and have Miss Eva be able to leverage a piece, and then ultimately, somebody wants to know what's going on in the field, with Mr. Richard, and being able to step up and folks not have ego at play. That's a seamless transition. That's everything. I
Right.
think for me, it goes back to chapter 5.
Hmm.
And I think in chapter 5, when they go ahead and they talk about data over emotion,
Yes. Yes, sir.
that's us.
So, Eric, when you came out of the automotive industry into the insurance business, was there anything that, once you got into that business that threw you for a loop, necessarily that made you have to take a step back? Or was it just seamless because because you had already developed good habits? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was pretty seamless because, sort of we're dealing with data, because we're on the financial side, we're
Mhm.
data driven. We're dealing
Right.
with all the analytics prior
Mhm.
to. So it was real easy because a lot of times on the insurance side of it, and especially from a corporate perspective, sometimes they let emotions get in the way versus to
Mhm.
go ahead and look at what the analytics look like.
Right.
So I was already schooled on that piece of it. And now it's really trying to go ahead and incorporate the compliance piece. Now we're always, pretty compliant, audits, etc. but it was a little bit different when we're dealing with sort of the HIPAA aspect of it.
Mhm.
Practices. For me, it was pretty easy.
Kim, when you came out of corporate and now you're running your own shop, what was the biggest? You always a hard worker. You always put in the work. But what was the biggest transition for you that it took a minute for you to like? All right, this is different, but I'm in charge. How do I make this work? What were some of the challenges for you?
Well, honestly, I didn't have any challenges. I'm sitting here thinking, transitioning from, yes, corporate and teams and employees, it was all the same for me. I just knew I didn't have anybody. I didn't have a team. The team was me, and I still had to do the same thing that I always did, but in a different direction. So I don't really know how to answer that question because I didn't have a transition or a challenge in moving from corporate to entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. I
Right,
just kept doing the same thing I was always doing.
right, right.
So I'm,
So
I'm not sure if I can answer that.
So, other perspectives, while innovative strategies are important, they must be carefully balanced with proven traditional methods that have consistently delivered results. So, Richard, to go back to you for a second, when you guys first started and before you got that big contract, was there any challenges as far as being a young company? Was it any challenges just putting a method together?
That I guess what we did, because we being in the environmental business, Eva actually started the first environmental education school in the country back in the early 90s. And it introduced us to a thriving environmental business back when asbestos was the big buzzword.
Hmm.
So, people was always been able to just see the future. Think big. We were in a meeting and this was back in the early 2000s, and uh, one of the people that I don't know what was a client, but so long ago, but told Eva said, $1 billion, you just said so easy, it just rolled off your lips. We're talking about, I think, you can help me out on this. I don't know what was private,
Private partnerships.
and just her just the mindset of thinking in those type of dollars back then. We didn't have them, but that was our mindset. So basically, what we did, we took advantage of a thriving industry, and we didn't have a lot of money. I mean, we worked from, uh, I mean, we started out by working in the field ourselves, generating enough money to live and function. And I mean, when I say working out in the field, we were the air monitors. I wrote the specifications. And then I got out there, and Eva got out there. Now she was out there.
I have my Gucci boots
She
on.
construction. And she, I mean, and it was, I mean, and she did fall through a floor in a house, but the drop was only about 3 or 4 feet. So I mean, it was I guess the word sweat equity. We got out there and we knew the business inside out, and then from there, the opportunities presented itself where we we didn't invest a lot of money in, big office, hiring a lot of people. We use other people like the concept in Nine Figures where he was going out buying other small companies. We managed to where we got to the point where we had 200 subcontractors in our database.
Wow.
So we would, if a roofing job come up, I call my roofing contractor and, we'll get our 25, 30% off the top and we would move on, and we just had people to manage it. So, I mean, I may not have answered your question directly, but if you don't have to, if you plan it right and you don't, like I heard my sister tell Eva one, and this was a couple of years ago. I don't dare out at some. She said, "No, no, it's not in your cabinet." Somebody told her no, and Eva just ignored
Oh, that is so important. That is so important. A lot of people take a pushback as it's not supposed to happen. And that's just not it for whatever reason. But when people see that, you know what, we're still coming. A lot of people in business, may not like you, but they respect the energy and they know that if they give you a job, they know it's going to get done. But that is a great segue to another bullet point. Rigorous financial oversight is crucial, but excessive caution and financial liquidity might limit investment in growth opportunities and innovation, potentially stifling business expansion. But you took it another way and said, okay, we're going to save money. Not only are we going to save money and get out here and do this work while we build, but we're going to know the business in and out. Like for us, we're starting this media leg of this business. So there's a lot of things that I do myself right now, Richard, only because um, I I like to know going into a meeting with someone that works for me that whatever they tell me, they better make sure it's right because I have already worked in the position. And so I kind of already know the answers when you ask. So I'm pretty sure as long as you guys have been in the business, there's not too many things that you guys don't know that if you ask a question, chances are you guys probably already have the answers. I guess you just want to, and I'm just spitballing here, but I guess you want to know if these folks know what they're doing. And I would imagine over a period of time that you've been in those situations.
Yeah, yeah. And with me of construction, now environmental, you're talking about environmental consulting, related to asbestos, lead. I mean, the amount of training I took, I mean, I can talk with the best of them. But really, when it came to construction, I mean, I was a business person. I was not a nut and bolt person. But I was in a situation where when we were doing the contract with Brown and Root,
Mm.
and at the end of that contract, we were doing probably about maybe between $1.5 million a year consulting, which was a lot of money back then for a consulting company and a company to come. But we were out hustling from project to project. Now that project at Brown and Root that Eagle helped Brown and Root get, it was a 5-year contract.
Oh, that's awesome.
And when I told Eva, I said, man, this is what we need to be going after. We need to be going after this 5-year contracts. Well, at the time, that concept was really new to the I'm going to say the private, the public, the commercial industry. When I say that type of contract, it was an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract. And what happens is that these school district municipalities, any contract that's over $25,000, they got bidded out.
Hmm.
You have people like Houston Community College with, $200 million worth of deferred maintenance. So that means a lot of that stuff is over 20, everything they have to bid out. And that means that the procurement is usually anywhere from 120 to maybe 180 days before they can put it out in the street, get the contract to get the work done. Well, the government was doing these indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts where they bring in a company like Brown and Root. Now, Brown and Root basically don't self-perform anything. They pretty much subcontract everything out. The people that they're hiring are project managers, estimators, safety people, people that can manage the subcontractors. So when we actually came in as a subcontractor, but we were their environmental consultant subcontractor. So I got to manage the abatement and the environmental portion, and I understood the methodology. And I told Eva, I said, Eva, we're at the crossroads. Do we want to continue to go down the lane of being environmental safety, or do we want to look at the time the acronym was JOC, job order contracting? It was new. So Eva went up and sold the idea to Houston Community College. Um, fast forward, Houston Community College ended up putting an RFP out, and we had to compete um, um, against it. And we put together a team, and that's where I go back to the proposal. Lo and behold, we got the contract. So we went from, immediately making, it was supposed to be a $4 million a year contract. So now, immediately we're going from, $1 million a year to $4 million a year. So I'm sitting in the very first meeting, and the guy that I was talking to, he was, Mr. Jackson, I don't think this is going to be, the amount of money that we thought it was going to be. So, I'm thinking, I said, oh, well, 2 or 3 million is better than, what we were getting, because that was the mindset. He said, well, it's really not going to be 4 million a year. It's probably going to be about 8 million a year. I said, whatever you got me until you. So now, we have to overnight build from a pretty much, we had probably about 4 employees full time, all environmental. Now I have to put together a team. So now I'm circling back to the question you asked me about understanding. I didn't from nuts and bolts on construction. I did not understand. I did not have that clarity or that. However, that one of the top people at Brown and Root, guy from Haiti, and he had a really close friend from the Philippines. They were both engineers. When they found out what I was doing and going to start my own company, they said, Richard, we'll come work for you, because they saw what I represented there and how I worked and the seriousness and the knowledge. And so where I'm going is that you don't have to have all the knowledge and nuts and bolts, but you better have someone around you
Yeah.
that have those that have that knowledge, but not only have that knowledge, but someone you can trust.
See, Richard, you fall into this next section where it says identifying and learning from experienced successful mentors. The importance of seeking guidance from mentors with a proven history of success is emphasized by the author. He argues that by seeking guidance from individuals who have already reached milestones you aim for, you can gain essential insights, avoid costly mistakes, and accelerate your path to success. Dawson encourages seeking multiple mentors, recognizing that different mentors can offer diverse perspectives and expertise in specific areas. So, Eric, I'm going to come back and ask you a question. From someone going into the insurance business, was there someone that took you under their wing and said, "Hey, okay, this is how you do it," or was it more or less you had to get baptism by fire? How was that for you?
It was a little bit of both. Coming in, not understanding the Medicare side of it. And there was a gentleman, Frank Catano, old Italian dude. So, but Frank, he knew his stuff. There was also, we had a director, Peggy Taylor, and she was, probably, I don't know, 60 years old, but, she was a visionary because, most everybody understands or knows Humana right now, but the way it looked back then when we were first starting in 2004, 2005 is much different than, the Fortune 50 company, that it is today. And some of it was the diversification, the foresight to say, hey, you know what, we need to diversify. We just don't need to be on Medicare. If you go ahead and you look at the Uniteds and you look at the, Blue Cross Blue Shields of the world, well, their money isn't made on the Medicare side. That's chump change. That's the sandbox to play in.
Right.
It's on the commercial side, but Humana wasn't built like that. It was really some friends getting together, going ahead and, saying, hey, we can go ahead and do it. But when you started to bring in certain people, they started to go ahead and say, hey, we've played here before. Diversification is good, especially if you're going to go ahead and you're going to have, quote unquote, a captive workforce, which was unusual for any of the Medicare players to go ahead and have. So they were visionaries in some fronts. On other fronts, they were, sort of old school where they didn't want to utilize the technology that we had. And, that was one of the things that I wanted to go ahead and use was, even today, adapting to AI, knowing AI is going to go ahead and be a player. There's no reason to go ahead and really drag your feet in it. It's trying to go ahead and get out in front of it. So it's really leveraging the experience of some and the technology, that is forthcoming.
I think that's beautiful. But Miss Eva, I gotta ask you a question because you sound like my kind of salesperson. What was your mindset going into these meetings and me knowing you how you are, walking in with your powerful personality? What was your mindset as you walked in to grab these contracts or to sell these ideas?
Well, I always had from 21, like my first million, was that I guess it's a curse and then it's a blessing at the same time to look, as looker,
Mhm.
walk in the room, of course, that I always brought something to the table. That I had the technical knowledge, I had the education, I had everything lined up on the table from a technical standpoint. So we get over why you got that allowed me, I got in the room. But when I did Showtime, it was Showtime. So
Right.
more than let's say a pretty face or whatever. There are people like, God, that kind of thing, and looking back, I never do another business like that on that level because we've evolved from that. But if I look back and you say, okay, where could I have tweaked it better? I believe it would probably been the 250 subcontractors to teach them what I'm doing, the type business we were doing,
Right.
and bring more of that and my team, and to really get my own coaches, my personal coaches, and my life coach, whatever, clarify my vision because I used to always surround myself with people who can translate what I'm my vision because I'm a big vision. I'm in the I've been blessed by God with vision, and it's like it's unlimited. So I had people who was able to translate that, but at the same time, when you do that, you've got and you helping people because I made all kind of mentor protege programs. I tried that, and then you've got because when you mark an X in the sand or an X, you've got to keep evolving and growing from that X. So that's another motivation reason why you want to train others to do your business so that you can have it's more like an army of people like be nice. I was the one people would call family, friends, and business. Hey, I need to float $50,000 to next week.
Right.
It was difficult to be the pioneer. So looking for mentors on my level, it was kind of difficult because you got jealousy, you've got a lot of things, and even that politician who told me, oh, instead of focusing on what I was trying to say, it was more of it was jealousy and envy. So, like I said, I would not do another public business. I would be the front. That's why I admire what you're doing so much there because that's basically what you're doing. It's to teaching others, and I have that vision as well about trade. I'm committed and convinced about this level trading for people, my family, my legacy, that teach them how to fish, in that regard. And it's you got to keep evolving, like yeah, we were a small environmental company. We became Brown and Root, $100 million, we did that. And then, I had to you got to become the money. You've got to be able to generate your own. And that's basically on the
Right.
same different level because, I'm working on billions right now, but it's the opportunity where I see. So 9 figures, 9 zeros, 10, 15, it's the same to me, and I see bigger than that on a global level. So to answer your question is that walking in the room knowing that I've got everything there is and also be very, very transparent. A lot of it's politics and
Mhm.
the same politics when you walk in a room and knowing and doing your research, you could be the best architect in the world. However, they've got a political campaign. You didn't do what you need to do, to take care of because everybody's going to do the same level of work. Everybody like Eric, you know, you're going to provide a service, you're going to provide the insurance, that everybody's going to provide the service. Let's say everybody, we're not talking about the charlatans out there. We're talking about we're going to perform. So if they're looking at it and they're looking at you versus the other guy, they're going to, in Texas, they're going to buy from their friends, you know, and people they know, people that support it, you know. So I did the 360. So I was very well prepared. I knew where the boats were.
Right,
I knew,
right.
and they didn't have to compromise in my service.
You know, it's so funny you talk about the political aspects of contracts. When I was in the connectivity business, um, we were the first company to provide wireless connectivity on the rail. Well, the person that was supplying us with the equipment um, came in after a year when they heard about how much money we were making. They came out after a year for the new set of trains and undercut us. And the same thing happened to them a couple of years later, when the city found out that they could get the hardware direct from whatever the connectivity was at the time, connectivity company was at the time. But the one thing that also struck me when you were talking is the fact that when you go into a room or, you know, you're seeking advice, a lot of people want to gatekeep because they look at you as the competition. So they only want to give you so much. So for me, you know, as on this particular platform, I help everybody who I can, because in our business globally, we're talking about a $2.409 quadrillion business. And there's enough for everybody. But some people think that, you know, well, you know, if I don't show them this, then they can't make more money than me. And I just thought that that was just absolutely silly. But you know, Miss Eva, I admire you because the first one through the wall gets the bloodiest, and I'm pretty sure that you and Richard have a lot of information about that aspect, because and that also leads us to our last thing here. So emphasizes the importance of developing an expansion-oriented mindset, like you were just saying, Ms. Eva, for achieving success in business. He emphasizes the significance of maintaining a sense of courtesy and adaptability while also being receptive to fresh perspectives, including those from areas beyond one's primary field of knowledge. That's exactly what you guys did. And I could see, Richard, how you said that this book resonated with you from your own experiences, because that right there is just talking about what Ms. Eva and you were just saying for the last few minutes here. And so how do we bring this back around to trading? We have to understand that the market is going to continue to evolve. You know, trading is trading. Doesn't matter what platform you trade on. It's still just a matter of finding current price, finding structure, you know, and then what's going to be the motivating factor for price moving in one direction or another. I think a lot of people get freaked out because of the fact that they realize the weight of their success or not success. And I think a lot of times, that's why I say trading is 80% mindset, 10% buying, 10% selling, because of the fact if you get defeated in your own mind, then the vision disappears. The only thing you're doing is trading scared or not trading at all. And I think that that's what we have to do to be better traders. Get that mindset right and keep that vision long term, and don't forget to execute the short intermediate things to get us to where that end goal is, or for that first chapter or second chapter or third, and on and on. Like Ms. Eva said, hey, I'm thinking about billions. I'm and I have to keep that vision to get there. If you can't see it, you can't get there. If you can't see it, you can't get. So this was a great book. We're going to piggyback this with psychology of money, which is going to be on May the 9th. And I'm really looking forward to that book. That book really, really, really opened up some things for me that I didn't know that I was doing and that I have changed. And a lot of times we have to be comfortable with change, and we also have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Like, even going out and getting that money. Hey, I need this 50 grand for a week, or I need, going to get that money, going to get the money is probably the biggest thing in a business. You got to convince someone that this thing that I have is profitable, and for them to release that money. And of course, you have to be a person that people want to do business with too. So that's a that's a night owl, and I'm pretty sure y'all agree that's a night owl all in itself about developing financial relationships. So, and by the way, the few people that we have on here tonight, I want to commend you, because this is a Saturday night, especially for you guys on the East Coast. But anytime that you sit here and you start talking about a collective of ideas and experiences, you're being with like-minded people saying, I want to do better. I want to be better. Well, sometimes I want you guys to always remember this, is the fact that greatness is inconvenient, and greatness also requires separation. There's certain people can't go where you're going, and that's okay. And just remember, when you get there, you have the choice to pull them up. Now, whether or not they want to come, that's not up to you. If you reach out and they grab your hand, pull them up, and get them to duplicate what it is that you're doing. But if not, you got to keep moving on. You can't lose sleep over what the other guy or the other lady doesn't want to do. So, y'all, I think even, and Richard, thank you so much, and Eric, for sharing your experiences tonight. And it just made the talking about some of these quick bullet points that we had in this book. I mean, we could go another hour talking about this book, but I just wanted to take a few minutes because I think a lot of the aspects in this book needed to be talked about, at least a handful of things that we did talk about. So again, this was A Night Owl. That was the subject of The 9-Figure Mindset by Brandon Dawson. It was a great book. I hope that everybody got the hardback so you could put it on your shelf, because this is a part of the our legacy as far as passing down information to the young ones that are coming behind us. And what we want to do when it's time for the good Lord to call us home is to leave the world better than where we found it. Thank you very much, everybody. Great conversation. And I will see y'all tomorrow night at Market Watch at 8 o'clock. Have a good one.